Okay. Am I back? Am I back? Let's have a look. Shall we try that again? Oh, dear God. Oh, bloody hell. I kind of thought I might be trying it. I thought I'd be like, do you know what? I should have known better. I should have known better as to kind of think I can get away with playing Arthur C. Clarke. But there you go. Oh dear. Hooray, hooray. We're back on. Oh, Jesus. Right. Remind me next time not to try that because, I'm a, I'm a twat. Right. Like I say, hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully you can see me and everything's going well. Oh, Lordy Lord. Yes, I know. Well, if we're doing reincarnation, we might as well have we might as well have some deja vu thrown in. Why not? Because it's all good. Engir, what did you miss? You missed me being kicked off the stream because I was being a bit naughty. By yes, I got suspended. I got told off because I was playing Arthur C. Clarke, and I get told off, and I shouldn't have done that. Oh well, there we go. We're back on anyway. That's good. I was just getting into that as well. Do you know what? It's kind of really annoying because I really did love the Arthur C. Clarke things, and it's the monkey. It probably could be the monkey. Yeah, clips are too long. I know. I should really shorten it. I tried to do it by kind of interjecting with some talking and stuff, but yeah, it's one of those things where I might be able to play very short clips, but it's such a shame because I really would love to comment on it because the whole old Arthur C. Clarke series was amazing and it had some really, really interesting things. Hopefully, you kind of got the gist of it before I got kicked. And hopefully, you got the gist of the whole story around these girls reliving their past lives and being able to talk to their other family, their past life family, and the fact that they fully accepted what they were saying. I do kind of, like I say, I find the whole thing really interesting. I love, this book I mentioned before. Anybody's going to missed it as I was in the last stream. This book is the one that I kind of was brought up on because I read this from cover to cover, and I can remember being fascinated. There's like I said, 30 odd cases of children being able to recall all kinds of weird things. Some are very odd. It might be a boy remembering what it'd be like when they were a girl, or it might be a child recounting their previous life as a World War II pilot and giving details about the inside of like a Messerschmitt plane, that kind of stuff. There'd be other things where they recount. Stop waffling. I know. I apologize. What's that? What's people saying? So if you like Justin being booted off his own podcast, please hit the like. Yeah, thanks very much, Tim. Bless you. Denise, thank you for being a member for 5 months. Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming back to me. All 72 people giving me a bit of, make yourself a cup of tea whilst I sort myself out. Thank you, Jillian, for being a member, like I say, for 8 months. Let's have a look. You don't get entertainment like this anywhere else. All right. What's that? Sound perfect, visual, spot on, getting booted off your own podcast. Priceless. Yeah, thanks very much. Now then, one other thing I just wanted to mention before we have our guest, because our guest has arrived, which is amazing. This book is by a guy called Ian Stevenson. It's quite tricky to find. It's about 20 quid, but this guy literally studied the past lives of children and the evidence for it over 40 years. He looked into all manner of things, including something a bit more controversial, which is birthmarks. And I want to get your thoughts on that as well, because apparently some children said that, like I said, they might have been killed in a particular way, like they've been pierced or shot or whatever, and their birthmark matches the location of where they were wounded or shot or killed and things. So this is a really, really good book to get. But Now that we've had our fun, let's bring in our guest, the lovely Mr. Paul Godard. Good evening. How are we doing?
Yeah, I'm doing really good. God, my head's quite big, isn't it? Let me just get that a bit. So our heads match size. I'm
Yeah,
doing great.
I hope you saw me kind of kicked off my own stream. That's always fun.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
hopefully this will not happen anymore. Anyway, so I had to get you on because I know you've been on the podcast proper before, and for anybody who doesn't realize, Paul is a past life regression hypnotherapist. Would you say is that
Yes,
the
I'm a
right term?
hypnotherapist. Yes.
So this whole idea of reincarnation, um, first of all, from your experience, the fact that you do past life regression therapies, I'm assuming then you believe in reincarnation because of what your clients have said, or not?
I'm incredibly open-minded. I would love it to be true, but I'm somebody who comes from the perspective that I'm an explorer, and I always keep asking questions. And I think if you so focused on a certain outcome, you miss other lines that come in that could be more skeptical or some that could be more believing. So I tend to be very open-minded about it. But when I conduct the past life regressions with people on a one-to-one basis, I keep my own thoughts and feelings to myself, because I'm a great believer that my belief shouldn't be somebody else's belief. And
Yeah,
as I've mentioned to you before, I'm very pleased that I don't lead a client, only guide a client into hypnosis, because I have seen a few other hypnotists implant the ideas. I
yeah,
don't think that they're doing it particularly on purpose, but when you're in hypnosis, there is a deep level of rapport between the client and the hypnotherapist, and it becomes easier at that point to implant suggestions, which is good if somebody wants to quit smoking
yeah,
or become more confident. But when you're just doing the past life regression to reveal what the person is experiencing themselves, then it's very important, in my view, to make sure that the questions you ask are very sort of open, not interpretation. So, like, the kind of things I sort of have heard, and does your mum look very cross at this moment in time? I would ask something like, how is your mum
yeah.
looking at that time? It's those sorts of things. So, yeah, so I'm incredibly open-minded, and I just like exploring. And I think the more I look into this, the more questions I have than have any been answered.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I know you do past life regression around adults. You know what? Before I got kicked, I was trying to show
Yeah.
that obviously a lot of thoughts around past lives are from children. Like I say, children from very early years, 2, 3, 4 years old, saying, "Mummy, I remember," and giving details about how they used to live in their other life. Now, do you have any thoughts around that? And is it any different from dealing with adults? Do you think?
I find it incredibly compelling. I saw that you were showing Ian Stevenson's book, and Dr. Ian Stevenson wrote series and series of books. So there's a lot out there that you can get on eBay. Jim Tucker, who also joined the investigation later on, he's continuing Ian Stevenson's work. I have a lot of time for Ian Stevenson. Now, he never really looked or particularly believed in the hypnotic reincarnation,
Yeah,
but I think that what he demonstrated with the children with spontaneous past lives is very compelling, and a lot of people are very skeptical about reincarnation, have said that he's put a lot of information, a lot of data down that cannot be ignored. So I absolutely love his work. I think with everything, the hypnotic side and the children that experience spontaneous past lives, as it's called, really does need looking into. And I'm grateful for the work that Dr. Ian Stevenson did as well. And I hear it all the time, because I give talks, and I have got some stories that I add in to my talks about children with spontaneous past lives. Some are Dr. Ian Stevenson, some are from other sources.
yeah,
And the amount of time that parents come up to me, I would say, well, my child, when he was 4 years old and just beginning to communicate with us, was talking about a past life, and they were saying some really unusual things. Like the child would sort of talk about living in Australia when they never lived in Australia, and kangaroos being seen out the window. Other things are sort of somebody who used to work with, and all these I've been given permission to say these because that's client confidentiality, or anybody who tells me stories is very important to me. Said who lived in Gloucester, and Quedgley is like a small area outside sort of village area of Gloucester, an own town in itself. And the child was really young and wouldn't really know the area, and said, "Oh, do you remember when we used to live in Quedgley? And Mrs. So-and-so, whoever it was, I can't remember the name now, used to own the house we lived, and we used to have to go up to the bedroom with a candle each night." And it's like, where on earth does this come from? So even if I put on my skeptical hat with some of the things that children come out with, it's where do they come up with that? Because a lot of these children are watching the usual CBeebies channel, Disney Channel, whatever it is. And as far as I can gather from these parents, the children aren't watching World War One films, to get some of this compelling information from. So it's just fascinating. If anybody wants me to share any of the stories that I've heard, I'm also very happy
I mean, that's the thing is, obviously the skeptic will say, well, when you do past life regression of adults, the fact is our brains are incredible things. They're kind of sponges of information. So even if you you've forgotten essentially something you may have read 10 years ago, your brain may actually have the function of actually retaining that information and therefore using it to make up stories of a possible past life. That's what skeptics will say. Whereas I think I find much more interesting that very young children who really haven't had the life experience of an adult couldn't possibly, like you say, have known that information. I mean, do you think, well, you say that, do you think it's obviously more compelling that the fact that children can remember this stuff rather than adults?
Certainly some of the children's experiences I find incredibly compelling, and some of them it's so difficult to ignore. Whereas when somebody goes through hypnosis, it's kind of like a scale from the past life regression, which seems very much movie-led, to the past life regression, which seems so kind of real in a way. It's difficult to explain in other ways. Oh, the light's gone off a bit there. It's important to know that you can do regression in this lifetime, and I've done that with people. You have to be very careful with regression in this lifetime, but I know that regression can pull up memories that people have completely forgot about. Why I believe it's actually a memory that somebody's pulled up is that a client will say something like, if it was just a memory, oh, I didn't know I did that. And I think, well, maybe it could be the person making that up. Whereas if they said, yes, that happened, how could I have forgot that? It's two different responses to the same thing. So I'm still very open that you can tap into a past life hypnotically. But I think what makes the children so compelling is the fact that some of the things are quite grisly. I don't know if I won't go too far for people, but like some children have mentioned about being in the trenches and how they don't actually say I've got trench foot, but they describe what trench foot would be like. It's like, I can understand potentially some child may have seen something about the war on TV, but to go into that specific amount of details, I find it very hard to explain. If it's not reincarnation, personally, that they may have tapped into that somehow in the ether if this information is out there, rather than it being something they've picked up subconsciously by watching the television programs.
Just very, very quickly, Kaza, for your gifting memberships, thank you so much. You are absolutely legend. So you do help the channel so much. Kaza, you're not just for me, but for lots of other channels as well. Thank you so much. And Russ, again, just donating $1.99, just saying, does reincarnation have its roots in religion? That might be one for you, Paul. Does reincarnation have its roots in religion?
I mean, at one point, it would be oral traditions, and religion is how the information was passed down from parent to child, etc., down the line through religious or oral storytelling. If you probably trace its roots, it may well go back to that. I know when I have somebody personally, or like when I do look up the children with spontaneous past life claims, I respect all religions, but I put the religion to the side and like to find out the stories from that, because if you go the religious side, there is the religious angle of it.
Yeah.
Like Ian Stevenson's work, he would find some religions believe you can be born male or female. Other religions believe that you just stick with the same sex throughout. You
Yeah.
don't cross over. And when Ian Stevenson went to these different countries, he'd find, not all the time, but the majority of children that believed that if you were born male, you would always be male in every single life. There was very few cases of children being born female the next time round. But then again, I think potentially, and I'm not saying, because I don't know, I wasn't there, unless you were there and saw every single moment. So either that is a problem, because why would it be in one religion it works this way and not in another? But then, I've known people who were very religious and reject anything that doesn't fit in with their religion. So there may be more stories in those particular countries that just aren't being talked about because it's not reality to the parents.
Right.
So don't
Okay.
talk about that. That's a possibility. I apologise if I give any disservice to any other religion. That didn't happen, but that is one of the possibilities I'm wondering might be happening.
And also, I'm kind of interested, obviously, from your background, like what have you done? Well, two places. What have you done to me? Also, from your background, people. There's a couple of things I want to talk to you about. One is deja vu, which we've just had because the stream went and then came back again. People experience deja vu. Is it linked, or do you think it is linked to past life, or is it just essentially a false memory or a memory of doing something similar in the past, and you go, oh, I remember when I was here. Do you think it's got anything to do with past life or not?
Certain things, I believe it has a potential of being linked to a past life. Steve Mulligan, who I think I mentioned before on this podcast, who experienced the life of Sidney Sutcliffe in his reincarnation experience I did on him. Now, Sidney Sutcliffe grew up in the area of Llandudno, and when Steve was younger, he would go on family holidays. He didn't actually go to Llandudno that often. They would stay in North Wales, and Llandudno would be one of the day trips. And if the parents wanted to go to a certain location, Steve said, oh, that's all right, I can take you there. And he would go the shortcut way, which wasn't the main way, to the building, and the parents be thinking, how on earth do you know that? Barbara Carlin, she was a lady, if you look her up on Google, she had memories of being Anne Frank. Now, I know a lot of skeptics will say, oh, a famous person. But if you are famous and there is such a thing as reincarnation, I mean, there's no reason why famous people wouldn't reincarnate either.
Yeah.
And also as well, if somebody says they used to be Anne Frank, that's going to get a lot more interest in the media than I used to be a waiter in a restaurant in the 1950s. It's not going to set the pulses racing with the story. But she went, because she was talking about Anne Frank, and I'm cutting a long story quite short here, she went and wanted to go to Anne Frank's house, and the parents got lost, and she said, oh, it's okay, I can take you there. And the parents were amazed that she went through all the back streets directly to the Anne Frank's house museum that's set up.
Yeah.
And again, with deja vu, she had this visualization of seeing film stars pinned up on the wall, because that's what Anne Frank liked to collect. And she said she was expecting to see them, this lady Barbaro.
Yeah.
When she got up to the area where there would have been these photographs all pinned up, they weren't there, and she got quite upset and started to cry. And one of the guides came over and asked what the problem was, and she shared her story with the guide, and they said, oh, we do have those photographs, but people were taking them off the wall and taking them home as souvenirs. So to preserve them, we put them in storage and going to put them back up again under a perspex sheet so people can't steal those movie star images. So things like that I find with the deja vu, finding the way, knowing exactly where to go, or expect to see something within, let's say, Anne Frank's house, and it's there or it's not there, but it's been moved, I find very compelling. I would say that has something to do with deja vu, but gone to an extreme length.
Yeah.
You do get people that say, I've been here before, and that's all you get. And I think when that all it is, there is a thing. I mean, I'm not rejecting that it's a past life, but there is the thought that is actually a miniature blackout, literally for a split second. But because you have like a blackout for a split second, the brain kind of then kicks back in and thinks, I've been here before. And you really have been there before, literally a few seconds ago. So I find it much more compelling if somebody says, I've been here before, and round that corner is this.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
they
yeah.
find it, I find it much more compelling than just, I think I've been here before.
Right. To Ply Paranormal, thank you so much for the super chat of $19.99. Thank you so much. I reckon I'll donate to the sweater cause. Thank you. What are you saying? I need a different sweater. What is that what you're saying? Anyway, it's a jumper, not a sweater, not American. Anyway. But thank you so much, Two Ply. Yeah, I absolutely get that. You know, people, you know, deja vu is such a common thing, and I can probably dismiss, you know, a lot of that, what people say about deja vu. But like you say, if something's just that little bit more, a little bit bigger in terms of details and things, what's your? I mean, the other thing, deja vu was one. Ian Stevenson's mentioned this as well, and if you read about reincarnation, it's mentioned as well. And I kind of briefly mentioned it, birthmarks. You know, for those that, you know, that look into it, some people believe, it's birthmarks. It's just how you've been born. It's just pressure or points or whatever it is, and that's caused the birthmarks. It's got nothing to do with past life, whereas some children are linking a birthmark to a wound that they suffered in their past life, and they have the same location on their arm, for instance, of where they were killed in the past. What's your thoughts on birthmarks?
Again, I think that's a compelling argument, particularly the way Ian Stevenson presents it. If somebody happened to have a birthmark and it's on their chest, I wouldn't say, were you shot in a past life for that? Because I do believe also that people have these things happen to them during the process of being in the womb, and then it just happens like that. But I do believe that it could be something to do with a past lives, or I have the interest in thinking it has a potential, because Ian Stevenson would sort of say that if somebody had been shot where they were hit in the chest, say for example, and they said the bullet went through the body, there would be a birthmark corresponding on the back, and often it would be larger, which would happen because the exit wound when you've been shot is larger. So I mean, Ian Stevenson's got loads and loads of very compelling images, and Ian Stevenson had the thought that if it was a traumatic death, then the memory of what happened was more likely to pass over. So say somebody was just walking along and hurt their leg and grazed it on a stone quite deep.
Yeah.
But it wasn't life-threatening. I mean, obviously it would possibly be, if it was in a tribe, healed, and the person went on to live a long and happy life, but a scar there, and they were born in exile, they probably wouldn't remember that. But say somebody was stabbed in the leg and it was an aggressive death and a violent act, and the person died from that, then the person, according to Ian Stevenson's work, would more likely remember because of the trauma that they went through in their final moments of that lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna be aware. I'm gonna get your opinions after I've spoken with Paul. I'll keep Paul for a couple more minutes because it's just fascinating. But I do want to get your feelings at home around and your thoughts around reincarnation, what you believe. Two Ply again. Thank you for another donation. So just now got $1. Anyway, thank you so much. Like I say, everything helps the channel so much. Just so thank you. What's that? Don't tell Justin, but I think the monkey just turned its head and winked at me. Right. Yeah, him. Right. So one other thing I just wanted to mention, because I don't want to keep you on too long, but it is a really, really fascinating subject. for the past life regression therapies that you have done, of all the people you've done in your career, have you ever, and I think I might have mentioned this before when we spoke before, but have you ever come across somebody who has given details so specific, it's kind of you've had to go, there is absolutely no way that this person could possibly have known that, and yet they've come out with this information.
So there is Steve Mulligan. I have mentioned that before. I'll also mention Radical Cartoon Stella as well after that. Now, the information Steve was coming out with, there is information about it online. You can find... Now, I trust Steve 100%, and I believe that he wouldn't have looked it up, at least consciously or anything like that. So I fully trust the man. So what he was mentioning did correspond with what was found online. But what is interesting that isn't found online is that Steve mentioned his siblings. He also mentioned things of the acts that his father did, because his father, Arthur Sutcliffe, was a performer on the stage. Now, when you look up Arthur Sutcliffe, and he would talk about he was in a sailor suit sometimes, that was mentioned. But he was also saying that his mother would sometimes go on stage with his dad, and sometimes as well himself as Sydney would be invited on stage.
Yeah.
Now, that information, as far as I know, it'd be good to try and find it out, isn't available online. I mean, it can't be found online. So if that came forward, that would be a very compelling thing, because it's not something that could be found online. If that matched up, like everything else matched up so well, that for me would be incredibly strong case. I know that Steve wants to find out more, but he doesn't like the limelight. Now, I put a press release in initially to the North Wales Post, just to get more information, hopefully get the families to say, you know, for me, the more I'm on in the media, the brilliant for me. But Steve likes dealing with his Paradox Club is the group. He likes dealing with the people who are interested in the paranormal, and he doesn't want to do anything for the fame or anything like that. So if he was, and I don't think I know he didn't, would make anything up, you wouldn't choose something that would be so compelling that then you could look into it and it would just spread and spread and spread. He likes to just kind of keep himself to his close circle of people, because that article went in all different newspapers and it was really good for me. But I think Steve didn't really enjoy it so much. Stella from Radical Cartoons, I have to remember all the details, but she was in a convent, and the place that she went to, it's on my YouTube channel, the Stella Radical Cartoons, but she did a lot of research afterwards. Now, she's a skeptic. The convent that she said that she spent her life in seemed very similar and very compelling. She said she needed to go away because of the lack, and the family was seriously lacking, and there was like a lack of food. When she matched up the dates, it matched up perfectly to during the time what would have been a great famine. There's lots of other things which I need to go back and re-look at that one again, because I've been so busy recently with other people's, not just reincarnation and past life questions, but also I work as a clinical hypnotherapist, so I get people for all sorts of things. But I will go back and look at it. But it's on my YouTube channel anyway. But she is actually skeptical about past life, even though everything matched up perfectly. She's kind of more of the belief that it's something called cryptomnesia, which is hidden memories. So that she believes that potentially because we're bombarded with so much information. We taught things at school. We've got books. There's television programs. She believes she picked it up that way somehow. So she believes it's more of a cryptomnesia thing. But that's why I think it's important that people believe what they want to believe, and it's important. I wouldn't persuade Stella from thinking it was cryptomnesia, and I wouldn't persuade somebody who's a deep believer in reincarnation and past lives that perhaps it could be. same with cryptonesia. But just if people want to hear the different options, I will give it to them. And during my talk, I mention all the different stages it could be that Ian Stevenson went into, which I think I mentioned before, like being just fantasy, going through to genetic memory, which is really interesting. You've got your cryptonesia. And then, other things like potentially not just reincarnation, maybe it's some form of channeling or possession that's going on. So, as I say, the more I look into it, the more questions I have than they've ever answered for me.
I was going to just ask, actually, because like I said, there are so many questions. I mean, one of the thoughts that people have is that some people have a fear, whether it's a fear of heights or, have certain fears, and there's been no traumatic incident from childhood, but they just, for some reason, have a real fear of something or a particular interest in something, whether it's a period of time or a certain, and they can't really explain it, but it's just something they're drawn towards. Have you come across people or clients who have recounted an event from a past life, which explains why in their current life they have that fear, for instance, of flying, for instance, or whatever? Is there any kind of or is that just kind of people reading too much into things?
No, I do get it an awful lot. Clients come. Drowning's a common one. I can't remember if I mentioned it last time or not, because as I said, whenever a client comes to me, I always make an agreement, unless they say they'd like me to talk about it, that whatever remains between the two of us will always remain between the two of us, and you have to kind of respect the client. But somebody that is happy to talk about it, they went back to being on the Titanic. And again, people say Titanic's such a famous case, but then again, there were a lot of people on the Titanic, and if people reincarnate, somebody's got to reincarnate on the Titanic. And I can count on one hand the really interesting, famous cases. Everyone's interesting actually, but the ones that people would know about, like the Titanic. Now, the things which were quite compelling about that is that she couldn't get the name of where she grew up, but she said Northern Ireland and got the name of an R. And she said the name was John Smith. Now, the spelling of it was John Smythe, but she said John Smith. There is a place in Northern Ireland called Royce Trevor, so that's quite, it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
And it would seem that if she was this particular person, they did grow up in Northern Ireland. Now, she was a fireman in Engine Room 3. I think she said she was a stoker. I remember she got the terminology slightly incorrect there.
Right.
But her experience of drowning on the Titanic, she couldn't get out of the engine room. She lost her fear of water because she didn't like to swim, and the shower, if she would only have it going on her hair, like her chest going down. I don't know how she washed her hair. Some people don't, but she wouldn't like getting her face wet. After experiencing herself drown as someone else, she completely lost her fear of water. So either because she realised that was from a past life, it helped her get over that fear, but also as well, even if I totally went down the skeptical route and said it was just purely fantasy and the bits that matched came from some form of cryptonesia, she still lost her fear of the water, which is a fantastic thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's just like you say. There are so many more questions. When the more you delve into it, I mean, it's. Obviously, I'm quite sure in terms of the work that you do and have done, and what you continue to do. Can you actively try to search out for your own questions, or do you just? Do you still do that? Do you do that so much, or is it a case of just, just working with the clients and things like that?
I'd love to look into it much more. I have tried, because I did an article for Haunted magazine, which went into the December one, and I chose, because I didn't want to do the Steve Mulligan story again, because as compelling as that is, I thought I'd choose a different story, and I chose one that was a lot more dramatic. It was Bethany Crowther from The Pet Psychic. She had a Channel 5 program, and hers was of a fisherman escaping because the boat wasn't safe and trying to find her or his, because she was male in that life, home and the journey she took, which is the trains and everything did personally match up. So I decided to sort of do that one, and I looked into what I could find online, and it just gave me a massive headache. I found out the trains and the trams that she took were all accurate. She claimed that pictures from the 1920s of the trams that she saw in the town matched up. So, you know, again, I completely believe her, but could it be cryptid? But it could also be a genuine past life.
Yeah.
But I really struggled to put the research in, and I would absolutely love somebody to properly go in and do the research. There is one person who did do some research once. Well, there's been a few times. I mean, people do their research afterwards and say, "Oh, I came up with this." But I tend to find, you know, and again, I believe it could possibly be genuine. But I know they kind of looked up, they found the name of who they were, they found that this person lived around this area, and they found a couple of bits and pieces. So they kind of find, you know, 3 or 4 good, compelling matches, but it's not the match from the entire time. So teaming up with someone who was this historian would be really good. There is, if you look up Drama Lama, he watched one of my lives and he did research into it, and he found that the dates didn't match quite up with the time period. A great past life, somebody who was a flapper girl, but I'm somebody who thinks the experiment shouldn't be done once and think, well, that didn't match up, this doesn't work. I think you have to repeat it, and see, you know, even if there was like a quarter of the people that I see or somebody else sees and it matches up perfectly, I think that's still compelling and something to look into.
Yeah.
So because, you know, I think that, as I said before, it could be from the angle of it's the subconscious mind, because at the end of the day, some people want to just heal from what they're experiencing, you know, their irrational fear for some reason. So it might well be that it's just the fantasy or metaphor. And it's like a moving scale, you know, to it being very compelling. And I think that, you know, it's like a needle. I don't think it's ever going to just be on the one. And, you know, humans love filling in the missing gap. Like if somebody sees a crime scene, you ask all the people what it actually happened, you know that everybody's going to come out with a slightly different story. It's the way humans are. So even if somebody is coming up with something with a truly convincing past life, you know, sometimes maybe there might be just a little bit of filling in the gap, you know, because if I was to ask you, you know, if you went to a restaurant when you were on holiday, when you were 10 years old, and you really liked it, a specific holiday, you probably won't be able to remember the name of the restaurant, but maybe on the hypnosis, you might tag on a different name from a different restaurant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Kaza, thank you so much for the 20 Australian dollars. It says for the mod kitty. So this one's for the mods. So I'll put this to one side, and yes, I'll divvy it up for the mods. I promise. So, you know, if you're one of the mods, there you go. You can thank Kaza for that donation, because I will sort it out between you. So bless you. Thank you so much, Kaza. Right, just one last question I wanted to ask, and then we'll get on to what people are thinking in the chat about reincarnation after all of this. One last thing. For anybody who's fascinated by this subject, as lots of people are, and I know I've asked you this before, so I apologize, and they're thinking of maybe having past life regression, but they are a little bit scared about what they might say, what they may come up with, or what the process is, and things like that. I'm thinking, oh, I don't want, like you mentioned earlier, what about, I'm worried about this kind of might have past trauma, which I'll come out with under hypnosis, or I'll say something I didn't want anybody else to know. What is the process of going through a past life regression for anybody who's kind of interested but a little bit unsure about it?
So going through past life regression, I do it hypnotically. You do get some mediums who just sit you down and tell you what you were or may have been. For myself, I put somebody into a hypnotic state. Now, it's important to realize that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, and I create with the person either online or in this very room a safe space that they feel they can go into hypnosis, because anybody that's gone automatic pilot whilst they're driving, you've gone into a hypnotic state. And the thoughts is that in hypnosis you can access past life memories. Some people sort of say that it's from the cellular receptors that are within us, They've got dormant memories from our past lives that can be triggered either in hypnosis or through various times throughout our life.
Yeah.
So there's different reasons why it works in hypnosis. I have various methods of taking people through to a past life. Some's a corridor, which is my preferred method, and each doors will relate to a past life. Or sometimes there's mists of time, or dropping people out of the sky if they're up in the air, down into a past life. And then I ask people questions. Now, I think it's important when somebody comes to me and asks, do you want it for healing? And if they do want it for healing, I also ask, would you like to know some names and dates so you can go away and look up a few and see if anything tallies up? Some people do. Some people just purely want it for the healing and don't really want anything else from it.
Yeah.
During the regression, I do offer, if people feel they need healing. Some people come for me for healing and they'll say afterwards, no, I don't need it. Just re-experiencing that is the healing process in itself. But because I'm trained as a hypnotherapist, I know the hypnotherapy tools to use for people to help remove the trauma, because whether it's somebody's subconscious mind coming up with a metaphor, cryptonesia, genetic memory, or if it's proper reincarnation, always treat that what the person is experiencing in that moment as if it's a genuine experience.
Well, it's a genuine fear or it's still traumatic. Yeah.
So it's very important to do that. And, you know, people, I've never had somebody who said they've not enjoyed the experience afterwards, because how hypnosis is self-hypnosis. You're just guiding somebody into that hypnotic state. Even the incredibly fast, rapid inductions, that's still self-hypnosis. You're just setting up the situation so somebody can quickly go into hypnosis. And for any reason they want to open their eyes, they certainly can open their eyes. I would like people to come to me for past life regression, but also realize that somebody might want to have a one-to-one experience closer to them. So the question that I often get people to sort of ask if they are a little bit nervous is to ask the hypnotherapist, how do you deal with an ab reaction? And if they can't answer that question, then, because ab reactions are experiencing the emotions if it's really happening again, or that you've been set up to experience those emotions. So I've got various tools and ways to allow somebody to experience that and be okay with it afterwards. If somebody says, what on earth's that, then that might be something to just maybe phone around a couple more people.
Yeah, exactly. So just before we finish, because I do want to kind of talk to people in the chat, because I'm a bit aware I've not spoken to any of them really. But just before we finish, if they would like to get in contact with you, how can they do it?
Thank you. So you can go to my website, paulgoddardnlp.co.uk. You can email me, paul@paulgoddardnlp.co.uk. If you go to my website, there's my phone number, also linked to just send me an email from that. You can find me on Facebook. You can just befriend me and send me a message. But if you are going to do that, just send me a message and say, oh, I saw you on the Monkey Paranormal podcast, or wherever it is, because I get so many people can't just messaging me and then it's just a random spam thing. Yeah. I've also got a Facebook page, Paul Godard Past Life Regressions, and you look me on Instagram as well. Paul Godard PLR is on that one. So if you look me up, I'll be able to find you. But if you just put Paul Godard Hypnosis, Paul Godard Past Life Regression, or Paul Godard Gloucester, because I live in Gloucester, you'll be able to find me on Google.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Like I said, I knew this was going to it was literally just trying to dropped in you just before, because I think, Paul would be a good person to try and, get onto this conversation. So thank you so much for coming on, Paul. I really, really do appreciate it. Thank you for all your insights, because I think you're one of the best people to speak to around reincarnation because of your line of work. And it's just been absolutely fascinating. So thank you for coming in. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for asking me. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers. Thank you, Paul. All right. Speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Right. So for everybody else, now you've had the insight from the wonderful Paul Godard. He's got obviously his background about past life regressions. Now is your point. An hour and whatever in, I want to know all your thoughts about reincarnation. We had the Arthur C. Clarke clip, which got me kicked off. Then we've had Paul and all of his experience of what people have come across. Paul's an absolute pleasure, so clear and so concise, and he's not exactly he's not saying that reincarnation is real. There's lots of other factors that may be at play as well. So what do you think is reincarnation? Do you think we have had a past life through reincarnation, or do you think once you die, that's it, no more, that's your lot? Let's see what people put in. Is past life regression, hypnosis, reincarnation, and dreams all just a connection to a part of the mind we don't understand rather than anything otherworldly? That's a very, very good point. It's exactly. Is it more psychology? Is it in the power of your brain rather than anything about the afterlife? Are our brains just so able to absorb information that is deja vu, these past lives, is just your brain able to recall information that it remembered a long time ago? Being so absolutely believe in reincarnation. Brian's like, nah. nah, not convinced. Oh, the lovely Paul Godard, not convinced you, Brian. Never mind. So yeah, let me know what you think. Is it possible that a person's soul or spirit can be reborn into a new body? Because that's what we're talking about. Is the soul immortal? Can we be? Now, obviously, some people, some religions believe that we can be reborn as a human or become reborn as an animal. Some people believe that. Some people believe that we can be reborn into like some kind of spiritual body, in fact. So let's have a little look on here. What does Weird Fox say? Daft question, but I'd like to know thoughts. Do you think we plan our next life with our spirit guides and soul group to overcome certain things? Because if I picked events in my life, what the fuck? Yeah, I don't know whether we don't know. It's just what people believe in, isn't it? Really, I don't try not to think too much about our new life. Christ, I'm just trying to deal with this one, quite frankly. Roger, it's possible that we have, but there is nothing conclusive to prove it. Absolutely right. There's absolutely no scientific proof whatsoever. If I think it exists, but a bit scary that we have to come back and do it all again. Well, we could, but it might be a better life. Could be a worse life. Anybody who's kind of been born into the Western world, I think you count yourself lucky, really, because statistically, the chances are actually, if you've been reborn into another life, statistically, it could well be a really shit life. So maybe just feel happy that you're in the life that you've got now. Let's have a look. I'd like it to be different, but I think that when we die, that's it. Seg, no. Just not convinced him. God damn it. Let's have a look. What's Diane say? I think maybe we tap into somewhere deep in our unconscious, maybe where we have memories through our ancestors' DNA. See, I love that idea. I do genuinely love that thought. What's that? Dude, stop lying. Who's lying? Who's lying? Smoking Molly Collie? I'm not lying. I'm just putting it out there. I'm like, because they're going, oh, I'm just saying, you might think it's horseshit. Fine. I don't care. I'm not lying about anything. Just, what's that? Dude, stop lying. Paranormal my ass. Is it paranormal? Is it real? Is it, like I said, plus you don't need to do the capital letter thing. It's a bit weird. Okay. Let's have a look. If you see the story of the boy I've seen, you'd believe it. Oh, I've not seen the story of the boy. The boy I've seen. Is that Wayne Dawson? Where is that from? Because I don't know if I've come across that. Let's have a look. Remember the movie with Robert Downey Jr. where he remembers his past life suddenly and antics ensue? That must be an old film because I don't remember that one. What's that? Let's have a look. What's the point of doing it all again but having no memories of your past mistakes so you can't improve? That's actually a really good point. That's actually a really good point because, maybe even if you'd think that we live again in a when we die, if we cannot at least retain some of the things we have learned, some of our mistakes, some of maybe in the future I'm not going to get married again, so I'd have to go through the divorce again, and maybe I won't do this, and maybe I won't do that, and maybe I'll learn from mistakes and stuff. But yeah, if we forget all of it, like you say, what's the point? I do like that opinion. Honestly, it's a nice thought, but I believe in aliens more so. Fair enough. No, be reincarnated as a Snickers. That could be worse things, I suppose. What's Simon saying? The light at the end of the tunnel, people report on death. There's a theory it's the light of the hospital as we are being reborn. That's a quick turnaround idea. I'd like a week off. I mean, honestly, the whole thing about dying and then seeing a light and all that kind of thing, I do genuinely think all of that is just basically your brain. Your brain is dying and it's releasing various chemicals and issues, and it's just a case of, some of those chemicals are hallucinogenic and you are seeing stuff at the moment where your brain is literally dying. I honestly think, I don't believe that we see Jesus. I don't believe that we see a tunnel. I just think that what we are experiencing at that point of death is just your body's final moments where it's just giving up. Let's have a look. Do we forget, or is it deja vu? There you go. Yeah, I mean, it isn't. I mean, the whole deja vu thing is kind of interesting. Me personally, a little bit like what Paul was saying. Is it just kind of like a blip, essentially? Is there a point where your brain just this is just a blip, and then you go, "Oh yeah, I've been here before." Nothing more spiritual than that. Deja vu is like a memory of the past life, but it's the same life. So we are seeing snippets of what's going to happen. Okay, that's an interesting idea. I want to come back as a cat, says Kaza. Cats have a great life, don't they? They do. So most cats do. Dreams are reality. We all have them. That's undeniable. So are dreams and so our dreams an unconscious connection to parts of the brain we don't understand. That's really deep, Russ. I'm loving that though. I like that. That's interesting. Let's have a look. Oh, okay. I want to be reincarnated as a Labrador. Yeah, what's the thing about cats and dogs? It'd be, when you just, I don't know. I think I love dogs more than I love cats. But if I was going to be reincarnated, I'd want to be reincarnated as a cat rather than a dog, I think. I think so. They just seem to kind of be their own kind of thing, They don't really give a shit, cats. So we are the ones sending rockets and people out into space, says Tim. The birthmark thing is dumb. So you get shot, get reborn, get a birthmark, then the birthmark gives you skin cancer. Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, to me, the birthmark idea is a bit of a stretch, I've got to say. I mean, some people swear blind that that's the point of where they were killed, or that's the point of where things happened, and then they get the birthmark. I just don't believe it, and I'm quite sure there'll be people who have studied skin, some dermatologists will be there going, no, just absolute nonsense. If you're scientifically minded, you just go, no, this is how birthmarks are caused. There's absolutely no correlation between that and past lives whatsoever. I woke from an induced coma in 2020. Bloody hell. And I'm telling you now that your brain is a wild thing and made me see all kinds of weird things and heard things too. Yeah. I mean, I've got no idea, not having gone through a coma, what to experience, but I do remember, funnily enough, just before my dad died, he'd gone and had surgery, which was not great, but the surgery he was pumped full of morphine, and essentially he was dying from sepsis, and they were trying to sort it out, but they would try to operate on him and see what was going on internally. And whilst on the morphine, he was saying, he said, the last time I saw him and he was conscious, he said, I'm going to have to tell you about the weirdness, the dreams, the kind of the craziness that was going on whilst I was on this morphine. He said, the hospital was being overrun by special forces, and it was incredible. He said, I'll have to tell you about it. He never did. So that is one story where I shall never know what happened with the special forces raiding the hospital in his morphine-induced chemically mind, because he died after that. But yeah, morphine is an incredible thing. Let's have a look. Firefly Kelly, I agree with Kaz as well, because if you're a cat, you don't have to pretend to like people. Very good. I can concur with that one. Honestly, I believe we exist simultaneously on multiple time cycles. When we die, we continue on a sequential cycle. That's I love the idea of, I've got to say, I'd love the idea of reincarnation. I love the fact, for lots of reasons, but the main one is it is so much nicer to think that we are reincarnated than just death being total, no more, that's it, lights out, that's the end. It's a little bit like ghosts, really, isn't it? If you it's nice to believe in an afterlife. It's nice to believe that we may come back as a ghost, because it means that there's no finality to things. Imagine being a rock star, being reincarnated as a bin man or something, and then remembering your past life. Yeah, that'd be a kicker, wouldn't it? Imagine having a great life, but then you're if you believe in like the Hinduism thing, if you were really naughty as a rock star and you come back as something, like you say, something kind of either real low status stuff, or you come back as a slug or whatever. Oh man. Let's have a look. I think the brain is responsible for 80% of paranormal occurrences, including past lives. Yeah, I get that. I think it's probably higher than that, Lou. I've got to say, I think it's probably higher than that. Let's have a look. What's mad paranormal investigations? 100% believe in reincarnation. The universe is so much more than us. How is it possible a 2-year-old would know stuff from 70 years ago, like names, dates, even the name of the plane which flew? It's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think that's why, I've mentioned that book, The Children That Time Forgot. I think that's why I loved it as a kid, because it opened my mind up to the possibility that how can these 2 and 3-year-old kids who are recounting all these details about the inside of let's say, Messerschmitt plane, how can they possibly know that? There is absolutely no way. They've not had the life experience. They've not been watching World War II documentaries, whatever. How could they possibly know that at the age of 3? That's what gives me kind of hope that reincarnation may actually be true, because I really find that fascinating. So look, 100%, that's so familiar to what I was seeing. Mad brain giving up. So sorry if you lost Justin. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's 2017. So I've kind of got used to it and it's okay to talk about now. Justin, you need to let Paul take you under. Yeah. See, last time I had Paul on, I was wondering whether I should do that or whether I should contact him and kind of get it filmed. I just don't know what I'd come out with. I think that's the one thing that and I know he's saying you're all, you can open your eyes if you want to, you can, you're not going to reveal things you don't want to reveal and all that kind of stuff. But I with my brain, bloody hell, can you imagine what a mess is going on in my head half the time? Dear God. So, like, if you're a ghost, does that mean you won't be reincarnated? Well, like I said, some religions believe that you can be reincarnated as a spiritual being. So, is that what you've been reincarnated as, instead of an animal or a human? As a person. So, are ghosts reincarnated people? Another theory. So, look, Seg must have been a rock star. It's pushing it. So what if you found out you were a Cray twin or worse? Well, I was alive when both of the Cray twins were alive, so I don't think that's possible. But yeah, you imagine you were once a serial killer or something. The cognitive theoretic model of the universe developed by smartest man on earth, Chris Langan, suggests that conscious returns to some sort of source after death. That's very interesting, Brian. I thought you were completely against it, Brian. I'm liking that. Are we still going? Yes, Chris, we are. But I'll be stopping very soon, because I'm talking, normally I stop after an hour. I've because of the little mishap with the Arthur C. Clarke thing, which we shall never mention again. And hopefully I'm not going to get a strike for it. Um, yes, we should not be doing that again. But that's why I've carried on talking. Plus, I wanted to read your comments out because I was aware that as lovely as Paul is and fantastic as Paul is, as well, I was not reading any people's comments, which was the whole point of this podcast. What if you found out you were a total knob previously? Serial killers. I'm a total knob now. There's no difference, really. Just, a different type of knob, I suppose. Serial killer. Imagine being a serial killer. I mean, I've said it before. My surname is Cowell, which is the same surname as Ted Bundy. Not saying anything, but family history. How can reincarnation and ghosts both be possible, though? I know. It's a good one. Mad Paranormal. Death is not the end. We don't go through this ridiculous world for it just to go dark and end. There's much better stuff to come on the other side. Bloody hope so. Cascala, I'd love to have past life regression. I'd be tempted. I am tempted to do it just because it's an experience, just because it's something I've never done or really, but I'm thinking about it. I think it'd be fascinating. What's that? It would be a past life rant about paranormal truth. Go for it. So my mum sent me this is all good, mate. Give it a go. I might. Like I say, I may do. Oh, here we go from bloody Tim. You might learn you was a Norwegian jumper knitter. Or was it all bit? What did Beardo call me? An 1860s or something? 1860s trawlerman or something like that because of my jumper. Arse. Let's have a look. Just already forgot what it means in your current life if you used to be a rock star. Anyway, got to go. Bye, everyone. Have a good one. Thank you, Seg, for coming in. Like I say, appreciate it, Seg. Have a good evening. Or actually, enjoy the rest of your day because your day's only just started. Okay. Right. I think we shall actually, as Seg's, well, I know, not because Seg's leaving. Christ, no. But I think it might be a good point to kind of wrap up. So, again, just a very quick thank you to Paul Godard for coming on. Really, really appreciate him coming on to it. The couple of books I mentioned, this first one, like I said, you can pick this up for about £5 on Amazon. It's a really good book, The Shun the Time Forgot. Very interesting, very easy to read, really easy to read, actually, because, I used to read it as a kid. This one, if you wanted a bit more of a in-depth look into this whole idea about past lives, Ian Stevenson's book, The Children Who Remember Previous Lives, that's your kind of more 40 years of experience of scientific study into, what these children have come out with and what they've said. Anyway, those are the ones to check out. Mike Larry, just go to yours, Mike, before we finish. Let's have a look because I've not read yours. The Buddhists I used to hang around with had a saying about it. If you want to know what your past life was like, look at your life now. If you want to know your future life, look at your life now. That's actually really cool. And I like that. And I know, Mike, you were a bit like, ooh, when I was a Buddhist, I'm a bit, you're a bit over the whole thoughts about reincarnation and things. But thank you for that, because actually, that's quite a nice one. That's a nice kind of saying to leave by. Apologies earlier for the stream going tits up. Getting ruined because I was a little bit naughty with the Arthur C. Clarke documentary. I apologize. Thank you for refinding me as I came back on, and thank you for joining me this evening. I hope you loved it. Just to let you know, obviously on Monday I've got Erie, Edinburgh. So guys from Scotland are going to tell us mainly about, I've asked them to mainly tell us all about the hauntings and the ghost stories linked to Edinburgh, Scotland, and of which there are many. And I'm really looking forward to it because I have not talked about Scottish ghost stories and Scottish ghosts at all. And Scotland is full of them. If you just think about, and if anybody who knows Edinburgh, Mary King's Close, then you've got the Mackenzie Poltergeist, and was it Greyfriars Cemetery? You've got so many areas in Edinburgh which have got kind of this kind of haunted history. That's Monday. That's going to be a really cool one. And yes, so thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for those people who donated. So Two-Ply, thank you so much for your donations. Kaza, again, thank you so much for your donations. And Russ for yours as well. Really, really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Anyway, enjoy your weekend. Have a great one, and take it easy. And I shall see you on Monday. All right, guys. Good night.